We all have stuff. It's unavoidable. Even if you grew up with rainbows and fairies and you had the most loving, attentive parents on the planet, we all have wounds. There's no way you can run away from those wounds, people. But if you understand how important healing is, and healing on a daily basis, and healing in a lifetime, there's never a destination. You not only understand that for yourself, you understand that by the people you impact in your life, but by the children that you raise in this generation. You are. Hey. I know, you know, who you are. Hey. I know, you know, you're my shining star. Oh, I found some amazing music on Spotify recently. This is Braxton Cook. The song's name is Shooting Star. Go listen to it. Oh my word, it is such a complete vibe. So, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I want to talk about healing. I talk about healing a lot. I think people are tired of me, like I'm regurgitating all of the stuff all of the time. But as a growth coach, the predominant thing that I work on with people is healing. Because you can't do anything if you ain't healing, baby. There is no way. I know so many people personally who think they have dealt with whatever it is they were dealing with in their lives. I know people who've had horrible experiences, losing children, losing jobs, losing opportunities, and being in complete heartbreak. And they just move on and kind of just, you know, shuffle everything into the back of their head and be like, no, I'm good. But then there comes that one day when everything is just too much. And for some people, they end up having nervous breakdowns. I know people who ended up having nervous breakdowns and then end up with bipolar. And all of this is manifestation of wounds that aren't dealt with. So you can take this as you want, be as scientific as you like, but people, I'm going to just tell you what I believe. To me and in my experience with people, a lot of what you manifest in your body comes from unhealed wounds. You're walking around bleeding in public 24/7 thinking you're good, when in fact, you are actually just carrying all of this weight, this pain, this trauma in your body. Your body always remembers. I don't know if you've read the book, The Body Keeps Score. I'm still wanting to get to it, but I've heard so much about the book, and what I find, just that line in itself is so true. Your body remembers what it is you pretend is not happening to you. And even if you don't feel the physical manifestation in your body, what tends to happen is you will start to develop habits and things to kind of prevent yourself from having to deal with some traumas. What happens with children is when they're in traumatic situations, a lot of the time, because they can't run away, they internalize, or the word is, so they mentally and emotionally remove themselves from the situation, which is called dissociation. And what it tends to happen is they dissociate from the situation, meaning the memory doesn't stay in the frontal lobe, it doesn't stay available to them at all times, it gets stored in the back of their heads. And if I give you an example with me, as a young child in an abusive home, I dissociated a lot of what was happening to me and in my household, that only years later started to come back into my memory when my nervous system started to rest. Now, it took me many years to get there because my nervous system had never rested. I went from one abusive situation to another, and only in the last few months, when my nervous system had completely rested, had I had flashbacks of things that had happened. And some of those flashbacks really hit me hard. Now, the reason why healing is so important and understanding why your nervous system needs to be in equilibrium, it needs to be in a state of calm, is if your nervous system is always on edge, you won't really know it, but you'll be more reactive to situations and you don't understand what peace really looks like. So peace to you could be chaos because you've normalized chaos. Chaos is something you grew up in and it's situations you keep finding yourself into, and then you keep attracting chaos to yourself. Healing is the one thing I feel like, in my experience and in with the people I've spoken to and in all of the reading and the studying that I've done, healing is the one thing that is going to make you really realize what peace actually looks like. But then it also is going to help you deal with flashbacks that are going to come up. So I've heard a lot of people say, well, you know, I grew up in a really healthy household. My parents really paid attention to me. I was so loved. But there's always trauma. Even if it doesn't look like trauma, if you are not dealing with actual healing, you're not going to actually know what trauma looks like. Trauma could look like a mirage of different things. You could be in the most loving household growing up, but just a family member or someone commenting on your weight once can manifest as trauma to you. One of the biggest understandings of trauma I see that most people don't have, and that I'm hoping, God willing, that in the next few years, South Africans in particular and Africans learn to understand, is that parent wounds exist in the body for a lifetime if they are not dealt with through healing. One of the ones that I started to see in my own children, and particularly in my daughter, is a daddy wound. And daddy wounds are so specific because they exist in your spine, right? If you read, I'll get to her name, I'll put the name here on the screen. Her book talks about how trauma affects your body, but also when you have a pain, what that actually is, where that comes from, right? Her name is Louise Hayes. But one of the things that I had learned from that book and from other readings that I've done is that daddy wounds exist in the spine and in the back. The reason why is the man, the way that God had created men, is that they are the foundation of the family. They're the ones who keep everything steady and solid. And if the man is not steady and solid, the children pay for that for the rest of their lives until they do the healing. And we had an episode with my daughter one morning. She was throwing tantrums over the weekends at like 1 a.m. in the morning. And one day I realized that this had more to do with the daddy wound that I also carried than it did with what was going on in our immediate environment. And if you're not in tune with your children this way, you are not going to know. You're just going to be reactive with their tantrums. The tantrum first triggered me for a while, and then there was a second when I was just like, wait. This child had just literally lost her father. The understanding of what father was to her. I have had back pain for many years, and the back pain couldn't be specified. I actually had inflammation in my lower back, but I had learned that back pain generally comes from daddy wounds because the foundation, your body's foundation, is unstable and it's unsure, and you are unsure about yourself because of that instability. So what I had to do then was, even though I was feeling extremely triggered because we were having the same experience in that moment. She was triggering my wound and I was doing it back to her because I was just rejecting the wound that she was showing me. This is why your children teach you all the time. But what I had to do was grab her, hold her, but then support her spine. And I know it sounds like all willy-nilly and all fairies and rainbows and stuff. But if I can tell you the truth, we've never had one of those tantrums again. Because I needed to understand in that moment that her foundation was unstable. And she was really battling with how to manage and regulate her emotions with everything that was going on around us. So I had to lay with her in the bed and make sure I was supporting her spine so that she felt steady. The funny thing about this entire experience is that when I was younger, I always felt like if someone hugs me, I want them to hug me around my spine, like actually supporting my spine because it made me feel like I was home. And I'd never had that experience. So when I was having that moment of realization, I recognized this child needs what I never got. And if I can give her that and it changes her perspective of her foundation, then it's going to change the daddy wound I've lived with for so long. And it opened me up to not only realizing how important the healing for me was, but the healing was actually being manifested in my children just by the education that I have on going through my own stuff. We all have stuff. It's unavoidable. Even if you grew up with rainbows and fairies and you had the most loving, attentive parents on the planet, we all have wounds. There's no way you can run away from those wounds, people. But if you understand how important healing is, and healing on a daily basis, and healing in a lifetime, there's never a destination. You not only understand that for yourself, you understand that by the people you impact in your life, but by the children that you raise in this generation. This generation is so fast, on their toes, always on their phones, always creating new content, always doing these really amazing, interesting, curious things. But they're running further and further away from their sense of self, which is very dangerous, because the further they run away from their sense of self, there's a very high opportunity for them to completely forget that they need to heal through stuff. I've heard so many people talk on video and on TV and whatever lately about how narcissistic people and how unempathetic people are starting to take rise in this generation. But it's for this exact reason. We are not implementing healing in our households as we should, which as parents is our responsibility. If we don't understand that we are not healing, we cannot project that healing into our children's lives. We cannot teach them what that is supposed to look like. We don't know it all. We will never know it all. They know that. And we can be pretty clear with them, like, mommy is not great at a lot of things, but I'm going to do my best to try and help you heal where I can, so that you can see for yourself as an adult where you need to work on yourself, so that they stay empathetic people and don't become toxic to other people in their lives. But what we're not only trying to avoid toxicity, we're trying to create people who and grow people and raise children who are not only successful, but also understand their self-worth. Self-worth is the most important aspect of what it is we want to teach our children. And by teaching ourselves self-worth and giving ourselves the opportunity just to sit with in the suit of it some days, and I always tell people, excuse my language, but some days you gotta sit in the shit of your life and just smell it and swim through it and just be there and be available to it. Because if you don't, you can't heal. That's the only way to get to the other side. If we're not doing that for ourselves, we're not recognizing our self-worth and then showing our children that our self-worth doesn't matter to us. So for them, it's not going to matter at all. And they're going to go and find value outside of themselves. If there's anything in this generation I feel is more important than ever before, it's to stay really available to the fact that our children need us to heal so that they can learn what healing looks like and they can stay empathetic beings who give back to the world. We want the world to be sustainable, beautiful, go back to what real relationship and real family systems look like. Instead of this junk. And I'm saying this quote unquote, there's a lot of junk on TV. These Christmas movies that are coming out, since Christmas is coming on this weekend, just really show family systems that are actually not really in existence. There are very few families who function highly and beautifully and are really connected with one another. And we're moving further and further away with this and from this, and we need to realize that this is our fault. We fantasize about what beautiful family systems would look like, but in reality we have a responsibility to create that for ourselves, and the only way we can do that is if we take on the responsibility of healing ourselves. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know this video is really hard hitting and it's straight to the point, But if you're not able to take this, you need to ask yourself, why is my ego telling me to turn this off? Do me a favor, please share this video with everybody you know, so that we can all do the work together and we can raise a world that moves away from harmful behaviors every single day, because we, each and every single one of us, is 100% responsible for what this world looks like in the next 10 or 20 years. Whether we're in a pandemic or not, it's not an excuse. So I love you guys. I'll see you on the next video.